Beacon was still burning on my console when the human ship docked. I had fired it 40 minutes earlier. Tight beam, aimed at the Conclave relay station at Thessa Point, the standard distress format for convoy-class vessels, under Conclave Mutual Protection Charter. I watched it go out on the scope, watched it travel for 2 seconds, and then watched the Varath Sovereignty's jamming field catch it like a hand. Catching a thrown stone. The beam bent, it went sideways. The scope showed me a direction that was not Thessa Point, and then showed me nothing at all, because whatever frequency it had landed on was outside my instrument's range. I pulled the scope offline and looked at my crew. 11 of them left. We had started with 34. The Tessaveth was not going anywhere. The Sovereignty's interdiction round had taken the main drive coupling and 2 of the 3 lateral stabilizers. We were venting atmosphere from the cargo bay at a rate that would give us 11 hours before the environmental. Recyclers could no longer compensate. I had 6 wounded in the forward medical bay and no replacement blood filters for the centrifuge. The convoy's 2 escort frigates had been gone for 20 minutes. 1 destroyed. 1 jumped out to get help, or so I told myself. I did not know. I knew only that the beacon I had fired at the Conclave had gone somewhere else, and that I had no second beacon, and that the Sovereignty's patrol would be back in approximately 90 minutes to confirm we were finished. I filed an internal status report, because that is what a convoy warden does. I noted the time, the crew count, the atmospheric loss rate, the status of each injured crew member. I noted that the distress beacon had been deflected by enemy jamming, and that its current heading was unknown. I noted that no response had been received. I closed the report and set it to transmit on the Conclave standard check frequency, which the jamming field was also blocking. Then I sat down at the navigation console and began calculating whether 11 hours of atmosphere was enough time for the Conclave to notice we were overdue and dispatch a search. It was not. I was on the 3rd iteration of that calculation when crewman Vassell called from the docking bay. "Warden," he said, "something has come alongside." I told him that was impossible, because the Sovereignty's patrol was not due for 86 minutes and no Conclave vessel had been summoned. He said he understood, and that it was alongside anyway, and that it was attempting to establish a docking seal on Port Collar 3. I told him not to let it dock. He said it had already docked. I went to the docking bay. The vessel that had attached to Port Collar 3 was not Conclave registry. It was not Sovereignty registry. It was not any registry I had ever seen. The hull that I could see through the collar's small status porthole was gray-white with a faint blue stripe along the nose, and the plating had the layered, slightly mismatched look of a ship that had been repaired many times with whatever material was available. The docking collar light went from red to amber to green, in the time it took me to walk from the hatch to the porthole, which meant whoever was on the other side knew exactly how to operate a standard Conclave pattern collar interface, which they should not have known because they were not Conclave. The inner hatch opened. There were 4 of them. Bipedal, bilaterally symmetric, soft-skinned in a way that made my crew instinctively step back. The one in front, female I thought, though I was working from posture and proportion, held up both hands, palms out, in what I recognized from the Conclave species contact briefings as a common non-Conclave gesture of non-aggression. She was wearing a gray shipsuit with a small patch on the left breast that I could not read. She said something in a language I did not have. Behind her, the other 3 were already moving, not toward us, past us. They had a large case each. 2 of them went toward the cargo bay without being directed, which meant they had already read our atmospheric bleed on some instrument of their own and knew where to go. The 3rd went the other way, toward the sound of the medical bay, and I did not stop her because she was carrying a case marked with a symbol that, in every species contact briefing I had ever received, meant medical supplies. The one in front said something again, shorter this time, and held out a small device. I took it. It was a translation unit, already keyed to Balesi standard. The text on its small screen read, "Survey Vessel Aurochs, Earth Survey Service, responding to passive band distress intercept. We have medical personnel and structural repair capability. We require no assistance to begin. Please advise on crew count and injury status." I read it twice. Then I said out loud to no one in particular, "We did not aim the beacon at Earth. The unit had a microphone." The translation came back a moment later in the human's earpiece. I could see her listening to it, and she looked at me with an expression I did not fully understand. It was not apology. It was not confusion. It was something closer to the expression my senior navigator used. When a route calculation came out correct, but by an unexpected path, she tapped the translation unit screen, and new text appeared. "We know. The survey band intercept was passive. We were 4 light minutes out. You were the only signal on that frequency." Then she walked past me toward the bridge, presumably to speak with someone there, and left me standing in the corridor, holding a translation unit and the growing suspicion that I had not, in fact, understood the situation at all. I followed her. What I learned over the next 2 hours, pieced together through the translation unit and the Aurochs' own data packet, which their comms officer eventually sent to our systems in a format our computers could read, was this. The Vareth Sovereignty's jamming field operated on the standard conclave emergency frequencies, which were the frequencies the Sovereignty knew about and had calibrated against. The jamming field did not account for was the pre-diaspora survey band, a frequency range used by early human deep space survey vessels, predated the conclave's expansion into this region of space by approximately 400 years. The survey band was not in the Sovereignty's jamming parameters, because the Sovereignty had no record of it. It was not in the Conclave's active monitoring list, because the Conclave had designated it obsolete when humanity had joined the outer traffic protocols and begun using standard Conclave frequencies. There was, as far as I could determine, exactly one reason the survey band was being monitored at all. The Earth Survey Service had never formally decommissioned it, and ESV Aurochs had been running a passive monitor on it as a standard background process for the entire duration of her patrol, because her standing orders, which dated to a directive issued before I was born, told her crew to do so. My beacon, deflected by the Sovereignty's jamming field, had bled into the survey band. The Aurochs had been 4 light minutes away, running a supply survey of a minor debris field. Her captain had looked at the intercept, identified the distress encoding, noted that the signal was on a frequency no active conclave vessel should be transmitting on, concluded that this meant the transmitting vessel was in trouble serious enough that its signal had been pushed off its intended band and detoured. The whole decision, according to the translation unit's rendering of what the captain eventually explained to me, taken approximately 40 seconds. The Aurochs' medical officer replaced the blood filter centrifuge from the ship's spare inventory. Hair crew patched the atmospheric breach and braced the 2 compromised stabilizers well enough that I could manage 1/4 drive if I needed it. They did this in 1 hour and 53 minutes. Before they left, the captain, the female who had come through the collar first, sat across from me at the bridge table and walked me through their incident report on the translation unit screen. It was precise and very short. It listed the intercept time, the signal origin, the frequency, the actions taken, crew assisted, and the materials expended. At the bottom, in a field-marked authorization basis, it said, "Standing Directive 7 of the Earth Survey Service, Passive Monitor Protocol, Survey Band Frequencies, issued year 2291, never revoked." She pointed at that line. Then she pointed at me. Then she pointed at the space where my beacon's deflected path had gone. Her expression said, clearly than the translation unit could have managed. That is why. I looked at it for a moment. Then I asked, through the unit, whether the Earth Survey Service was aware that this regulation had effectively extended their emergency response network into a frequency range the rest of the galaxy had stopped using. She thought about that. Then she typed, "Probably not. We'll file the incident. Someone will read it eventually." The Aurochs undocked at hour 2 and 12 minutes. I watched her clear our hull on the scope, turn toward her original survey heading, and accelerate away. She did not wait for thanks. She logged the contact as a routine mutual aid response and resumed her patrol. 20 minutes later, the Conclave rescue vessel arrived, having been dispatched when the escort frigate that had jumped out finally reached Thessa Point and reported our position. The Conclave medic who came aboard looked at my wounded, and then looked at the inventory notation my crew had made. Filter centrifuge replaced, atmospheric breach sealed, stabilizers braced, and asked which conclave vessel had performed the repairs. I told her it had not been a conclave vessel. She asked which vessel then. I showed her the Orox's incident report on my console screen. She read it. She read it again. She looked at the frequency listed under signal intercept. She said quietly that the survey band had been designated obsolete before she had entered service. I said that it appeared Earth had not received that designation. She had nothing to add to that, so she went to attend to my crew, and I sat down at my console and began writing my own incident report. I described the jamming field, the deflection, the unknown heading of the beacon. I described the arrival of ESV Orox and her crew's actions. I noted that the human captain had confirmed the intercept was passive and incidental, and that no formal distress request had been made or received by any Earth authority. In the field, marked distress response received from, I wrote, Survey Service ESV Orox, intercepts basis pre-diaspora frequency band never decommissioned. Then I paused, and I added one line in the notes field because I thought the record should be accurate. We did not call them. The Sovereignty's own jamming pushed the signal to the one band they were still watching. They came, anyway. They were 8 minutes behind schedule, which their captain mentioned once, which I did not fully understand until I realized she meant they had been 8 minutes slower than they would have liked to be. I closed the report and transmitted it on the Conclave Standard Channel, which the jam was no longer blocking, because the Sovereignty's patrol had turned back when the Conclave Rescue vessel arrived. I do not know whether anyone at Earth Survey Service has read the filed incident yet. I do not know whether they are aware that Standing Directive 7 of 2291 is the reason 11 of my crew are alive. I know only that they were monitoring at dead frequency, and the Sovereignty's jamming field made a mistake, and somewhere in those two facts there is an explanation for what happened that is entirely procedural and entirely correct. It still sits in my log the way cold water sits in a hold after a leak is sealed, present, accounted for, not entirely gone.